My sister's feral kids destroyed $4,000 worth of my property in 1 year, and she laughed in my face. So when she showed up at my New Year's Eve party tonight, I didn't open the door. I handed her an invoice through the chain lock and told her the cover charge was $4,000. I am not a person who likes conflict. In fact, for the last 30 years of my life, I have been the family peacemaker. I am the one who smooths things over. I am the one who swallows my pride to keep the peace at Thanksgiving. I am the one who smiles when my boundaries are crossed because family is family. But everyone has a breaking point. My breaking point wasn't a single moment. It was a slow, agonizing accumulation of shattered electronics, stained furniture, and sewage water raining down on my Christmas ham. My sister, let's call her Brenda, has 3 children. I love my nephews, I really do. But Brenda does not believe in the word no. She subscribes to a style of parenting that she calls gentle guidance, but which the rest of the civilized world calls negligence. Her children, aged 6, 8, and 10, are not guided. They are wild animals released into domestic environments to test the durability of modern construction materials. They scream, they break, they conquer. And Brenda just sips her wine and talks about how she refuses to stifle their natural energies. For the last 2 years, every single time Brenda has visited my home, something has been destroyed. Not oops, I spilled a glass of water destroyed. I mean catastrophic, expensive, negligence-based destruction. And every single time, Brenda has laughed it off, blamed me for owning nice things, and refused to pay a single dime. The escalation began last year at Thanksgiving. I had just bought a new TV. It wasn't just a TV. It was the first major purchase I had made after getting a significant promotion at work. It was a 65-inch OLED, 4K, paper-thin beauty that cost me $1,200. I had mounted it on the wall with the care of a museum curator hanging a Picasso. I was proud of it. I had worked hard for it. Thanksgiving Day, 2 p.m. The turkey was in the oven. The game was on. Brenda's kids were bored. They had been running laps around the kitchen island for 20 minutes, screaming at a pitch that makes dogs' ears bleed. "Can they play the Switch?" Brenda asked, pouring herself a glass of my good wine without asking. She didn't even use a coaster. "They need something to do." "Sure," I said, trying to be the cool aunt. "Just tell them to use the wrist straps, and please tell them to be careful. The TV is new." "They'll be fine," she dismissed, waving a hand. "They play video games all the time." 10 minutes later, I heard a scream of rage from the living room. It wasn't a playful scream. It was the guttural roar of an 8-year-old who has just been hit by a blue shell in Mario Kart. Following the scream was a sickening, plastic-on-glass crunch that echoed through the house. I ran in. My 8-year-old nephew was standing there, face red, chest heaving, pointing at the screen. He had lost the race. In a fit of gentle expression, he had whipped the Joy-Con controller at the wall. He missed the wall. He hit the center of my brand-new OLED panel. The spiderweb fracture was a work of art in its own terrible way. The picture was glitching, lines of dead pixels bleeding down the screen like digital tears. The sound from the game was still playing, cheerful victory music mocking the destruction. I stood there, frozen, holding a basting spoon, my mouth open. Brenda walked in, took a sip of wine, and looked at the $1,200 disaster. She didn't gasp. She didn't yell at her son. She didn't rush to check the damage. "Well," she said, shrugging, "that's why I don't buy nice things until they're older. You really shouldn't have bought such a fragile TV if you knew kids were coming over." "Fragile," I choked out, my voice squeaking. "Brenda, he threw a controller at it. It's an electronic device, not a tank." "He was frustrated," she said, patting her son on the head as he started to fake cry to avoid trouble. "He's working on his emotional regulation. It's a process. Don't make him feel guilty, or he'll repress his anger and develop anxiety." She walked away. She didn't offer to pay. She didn't apologize. She ate 2 servings of turkey and left early because the vibe was too tense. I swallowed it. I paid for a replacement. I told myself it was a one-time thing. Then came Easter. I have a beige suede couch. It is the one piece of furniture that makes me feel like a sophisticated adult. It is soft, It is light, and it is strictly no food allowed. I keep it covered when I'm not using it. I love that couch. Brenda arrived with the horde at 1 p.m. By 1:15 p.m., the kids had disappeared into the living room. I was in the kitchen helping Mom with the deviled eggs, foolishly assuming that because I had hidden the gaming consoles and locked the TV remote in a drawer, the children would sit quietly or play on their iPads. "Look at this," Brenda's 6-year-old shouted, running into the kitchen. He was beaming, his hands covered in black ink. "I made a portrait of Auntie." He held up a cushion. My stomach dropped to the floor. The cushion was covered in thick, black, permanent Sharpie. It wasn't just a scribble. He had really dug the marker into the fabric. He had drawn a stick figure with wild hair and giant eyes. I ran to the living room. The couch, the arms, the backrest, the seat cushions, was covered in black loops and lines. They had found a permanent marker in a drawer I thought was child-proofed. Apparently, I underestimated the dexterity of a determined kindergartner and had turned my $3,000 sofa into a coloring book. "Oh my God," I whispered, touching the ink. It was still wet. Brenda followed me in. She looked at the couch. She looked at her son. She smiled. "Awa," she cooed. "Look at that abstract style. He's so creative. We've been encouraging him to draw on different textures. Paper is so limiting." "He drew on my suede couch, Brenda," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and grief. "This is permanent marker. This is suede." "It'll come out," she dismissed, waving her hand as if I was complaining about a dust bunny. "Just use some hairspray or something. Stop stifling his creativity. You're making him feel like his art is bad. Look at his face, he's proud of it." "I don't care if he's proud of it. He ruined my furniture." "Material things," Brenda sighed, rolling her eyes. "You care more about your stuff than your family. It's sad, really." It did not come out with hairspray. It cost me $600 for a professional upholstery cleaner to come out, and even then, you can still see the faint ghost of a stick figure on the left armrest if the light hits it right. When I sent Brenda the bill for the cleaning, she left me on read. When I brought it up later, she said, "I can't believe you're charging family for a little accident. You're so materialistic." I let it go, again, because Mom said, "She's struggling," even though Brenda drives a Range Rover, gets her nails done weekly, and goes to Disney World twice a year. But then came Christmas, the event that broke me, the event that turned me from a doormat into a vengeful accountant. This Christmas, I hosted. I went all out. I had a spiral ham that cost $80. I had decorations. I had a tree that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I wanted a perfect holiday. Brenda's kids were bored again. The TV was off for safety. The markers were hidden, so they decided to play superheroes. Their version of superheroes involved climbing things and jumping off them. I was in the kitchen, basting the ham, listening to Christmas jazz, trying to ignore the thumping sounds coming from the second floor. "Brenda," I said, looking at my sister who was eating the appetizers I hadn't served yet. "Can you check on them? It sounds like they're wrestling." "They're fine," she mumbled, her mouth full of brie. "They need to burn off energy. They're boys." A minute later, I heard a noise from upstairs. It wasn't a thud. It wasn't a crash. It was a massive, concussive boom, followed immediately by the sound of rushing water. It sounded like a waterfall had opened up inside my home. I dropped the baster. I sprinted up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. The sound was coming from the guest bathroom. I pushed the door open and stepped into a lake. The 10-year-old had tried to jump from the vanity sink to the toilet tank, pretending to be Spider-Man. He had missed. Or rather, he had hit the tank with such force that the porcelain hadn't just cracked, it had exploded. The tank was in shards on the floor. The water supply line had been sheared off at the valve. Water was shooting up into the air like a geyser, hitting the ceiling and raining down on everything. The bathroom was flooded with 2 inches of water in seconds. The kids were screaming, soaking wet, standing in the wreckage. "Turn it off," I screamed, wadding in to find the main shutoff. I slipped on the wet tile, bruising my shin, but managed to crank the valve shut. The spraying stopped. But the damage was done. The water had soaked through the floor. I ran downstairs. In the kitchen, directly below the bathroom, water was pouring through the recessed light fixtures. It wasn't a drip. It was a steady stream. It was raining dirty toilet tank water onto the Christmas ham. It was pooling on the hardwood. The drywall was sagging, bubbling up like a blister about to pop. The laminate flooring was buckling. It was a disaster zone. I stood in the middle of my ruined kitchen, water dripping onto my head, staring at the soggy ham, and looked at Brenda. She was eating a cookie. She looked at the ceiling, then at me. "Well," she said, dusting crumbs off her shirt, "at least now you can remodel that ugly bathroom. I always hated that pink tile. It was dated anyway." I saw red. I saw white. I saw colors that don't have names. I felt a vein in my forehead throb so hard I thought it might burst. "You're paying for this," I said. My voice was low, terrifyingly calm. "You are paying for the plumber. You are paying for the drywall. You are paying for the water mitigation. You are paying for the ham." Brenda laughed. She actually laughed. "Don't be ridiculous. It was an accident. Boys will be boys. You have insurance, don't you? Just file a claim. That's what insurance is for." "I have a $2,000 deductible, Brenda, and my premiums will go up. And insurance doesn't cover the fact that your child used my toilet as a trampoline. So, that's the cost of homeownership. Don't try to pin your maintenance costs on me. Maybe if you had better fixtures, they wouldn't break so easily." She gathered her kids, who were soaking wet and unrepentant, and left. She didn't help clean up the water. She didn't apologize. She didn't even say goodbye. She just packed them into the Range Rover and left me on Christmas Day with a flooded house, a ruined dinner, and a bill that I knew was going to be massive. I spent the rest of Christmas Day with a shop vac. I called an emergency plumber. Do you know what a plumber charges on Christmas Day? Triple time. The drywall repair, the water extraction fans running for 3 days, the new toilet, the painting. The total cost came to $2,200. I spent the week between Christmas and New Year's Eve in a cold rage. I sat in my house, listening to the hum of the industrial dehumidifiers, and I did the math. The TV, $1,200. The couch cleaning, $600. The bathroom disaster, $2,200. Total, $4,000. I called my parents. They told me to let it go. They said, "It's the holidays. Don't cause a scene, just fix it. Brenda is family. You have a good job. You can afford it." "I can afford it," I told my mother. "But why should I? Why am I subsidizing her lack of parenting? Why am I paying a $4,000 tax just to be her sister?" "Because you're the responsible one," Mom said. "Just be the bigger person." I realized then that nobody was going to save me. Nobody was going to hold her accountable. If I wanted justice, I had to take it. Being the bigger person just meant being the person who paid the bills. I was done being the bigger person. I wanted to be the petty person. Tonight was my New Year's Eve party. It's a tradition. I host. Everyone comes. Good food, expensive champagne, music. Brenda loves my NYE party. She loves the free booze. She loves the Instagram photos where she pretends we are a happy, close-knit family. She loves showing off her outfits. She texted me yesterday. "What time should we come over? I got a cute, sparkly dress. The boys are excited. Are you making those crab cakes?" I didn't reply. I spent the afternoon preparing. But I wasn't just preparing food. I was preparing paperwork. I drafted an invoice. I itemized every single incident. I attached copies of the receipts for the TV, the upholstery cleaner, the emergency plumber, and the hardware store materials. I scanned them, cropped them, and laid them out professionally. Item 1, replacement of Sony OLED 65, television destroyed by projectile. Cost, $1,200. Item 2, professional upholstery cleaning, suede specialist, for removal of permanent marker graffiti. Cost, $600. Item 3, emergency plumbing services, $12.25 holiday rate for tank replacement and valve repair. Cost, $850. Item 4, Water mitigation services, dehumidifiers, fans. Cost, $400. Item 5, drywall repair and painting kitchen ceiling. Cost, $700. Item 6, replacement toilet hardware and installation. Cost, $250. Total due, $4,000. Payment terms, immediate upon receipt. I printed it out on heavy cardstock. I laminated it. It looked official. It looked serious. It looked like a bill collection notice. The party started at 8 p.m. Friends arrived. Music played. The vibe was great, but the chain was on the door. I told everyone to knock, and I would let them in personally. I was the bouncer of my own home. At 9:45 p.m., the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. There she was, Brenda. She was wearing a silver sequin dress that looked tight enough to cut off circulation. She had done her hair. She was holding a bottle of barefoot wine, the $6 kind from the gas station. Her husband, Dave, was behind her, looking miserable as usual, holding a platter of store-bought cookies. The 3 feral children were in matching button-downs, already shoving each other on my porch, one of them kicking my planter. My heart hammered in my chest. This was it. I opened the door. Brenda beamed, stepping forward, ready to breeze past me. "Happy New Year, where he?" She stopped. The door jerked to a halt. The chain pulled tight with a metallic clank. There was a 3-inch gap between the door and the frame. I looked at her through the crack. She looked confused. "Open the door," she said, laughing nervously. "The chain is on." "I know," I said. I slid the laminated invoice through the crack. It hit her chest. Reflexively, she grabbed it. "What is this?" she asked, looking down. "That," I said, my voice steady and loud enough for the guests in the hallway behind me to hear, "is the entry fee." She looked at the paper. She squinted in the porch light. $4,000. Is this a joke?" "No joke," I said. "That is the itemized bill for the property your children have destroyed in this house over the last 12 months. The TV, the couch, and the bathroom you flooded on Christmas. I attached the receipts on the back." She flipped it over. She saw the plumber's bill. Her face went blotchy. "You can't be serious," she hissed, her smile dropping into a scowl. "Let me in, it's freezing out here. The boys are cold." "Cash or Venmo," I said. "Those are the payment options. Once the balance is cleared, the chain comes off." "This is ridiculous," she screamed, her voice rising to a shriek that echoed down the street. "I have wine. We're family. You can't charge family to come to a party." "You aren't family," I said. "Family respects each other's homes. You're a liability. You have treated my house like a demolition derby for 2 years, and you have laughed in my face every time I asked for help. The free ride is over, Brenda." "Dave," she yelled, turning to her husband. "Do something, she's lost her mind." Dave looked at the invoice over her shoulder. He looked at the total. He looked at me through the crack. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It was resignation. "She has receipts attached, Bren," Dave muttered. "That plumber bill is legit. I told you we should have offered to pay for the toilet." "Shut up, Dave," Brenda shrieked. She turned back to the gap, getting close enough that I could smell her cheap perfume. "Open this door right now or I am calling Mom." "Mom isn't paying for this," I said. "You are, $4,000, or you can go celebrate New Year's at the Waffle House. I hear their toilets are very durable. Maybe the boys can jump on those." "I'm going to sue you," she yelled, stomping her foot like a toddler. "For what?" I asked. "Not letting you into a private residence? Good luck. But while you're at the courthouse, we can discuss the small claims suit I have drafted for these damages. I have photos, Brenda. I have the texts where you admitted they did it." Behind me, the party had gone silent. My friends were watching. My other cousins were watching. The music had stopped. Everyone was listening to Brenda scream on the porch. Brenda tried to shove the door. The chain held. My dad installed that chain. It was strong. "You are ruining my New Year's," she screamed, tears of rage starting to well up, ruining her mascara. "I got dressed up. The boys were looking forward to the food. You are a selfish, bitter, lonely witch." "The boys destroyed the food on Christmas," I reminded her. The inn is closed. I reached out, grabbed the handle, and started to close the door. Wait, she screamed, jamming her foot in the door. Fine, we'll talk about it, just let us in. We can discuss a payment plan. Payment first, I said. Full amount now. I don't have $4,000, she wailed. Then you don't have a party. I kicked her foot away. I slammed the door. I threw the deadbolt. I threw the secondary lock. For a second, there was silence. Then the pounding started. She was hammering on the door with her fists. I could hear her muffled screaming through the heavy wood. Open up, you B***. Open up, I know you're in there. I turned around. The entire party was staring at me. Some looked shocked. Some looked impressed. My friend Sarah was recording it on her phone. My cousin Mike raised his beer. That was intense. It was necessary, I said. I walked over to the stereo system. I turned the volume knob all the way to the right. The bass shook the floorboards. The music drowned out the screaming from the porch. I poured myself a glass of champagne. My hands were trembling, but I took a sip. It tasted like victory. 10 minutes later, I got a text from Mom. Mom, Brenda says you locked her out in the cold. She says her kids are crying. Let her in right now. This is cruel. Be the bigger person. I typed back. Me, she has a bill to pay. She can leave whenever she wants. She has a car with a heater. The bigger person paid $4,000 in repairs this year. The bigger person is broke. I saw headlights wash over the living room window about 20 minutes later. She finally gave up and left. It is now 11:30 p.m. The party is raging. The bathroom is fixed. The couch is, well, it's still stained, but the lights are dim so you can't tell. I have never felt lighter. I know the fallout tomorrow is going to be nuclear. I know my phone is going to explode with angry messages from aunts and uncles who think I should have just let them in. I know Brenda will probably never speak to me again. I know my parents are going to lecture me for months. But looking at my clean, dry floors and my unbroken television, I realize something. I don't care. I spent $4,000 this year on repairs, but tonight I spent $0 on family drama, and that is the best investment I have ever made. Happy New Year.
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.